I have in studio Aryeh Leifert. He is a tour guide. He is also a rabbi. He knows Israel and he knows the Bible better than I know Brooklyn. And I grew up in Brooklyn. No, it's amazing. But you don't know this, folks. To be a tour guide in Israel, you have to go through basically like a doctoral course. You know. So what happened 400 feet northeast of Ashkelon? You know, that's the sort of, they're amazing. And he's in the United States because he was just the, what was he, a clergyman? I don't know. Is that it? The clergyman? Chaplain. On board a cruise. So he's in the Southern California area. I know this man for years. He's a remarkable man. His company is Israel Insider Tours. Should you go to Israel and want a terrific guide and company, Israel Insider Tours. So I want to talk to you about what's gone on in Israel. I need to tell you, I've told my audience, and I know you listen to the show, so you know, my two favorite places, America and Israel, have profoundly disappointed me in the last 2 years. Both panic-stricken. How do you explain Israel? Do Israelis think, look, to save a life, liberty and the ability to make a living and go to school don't matter? How do you explain Israel's panicked reactions?
Right. So first of all, Dennis, good morning, and thank you very much for having me. Happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.
And Merry Christmas as well, from one American to another. So the way I explain it is the way that was explained to me by an Israeli friend. He said that in Israel, we very often have a military mindset of following orders. And I think that many Israelis see this as a military situation. It's a national security situation, whether correctly or incorrectly, but that's how they see it. And we don't question orders. The government says jump, we say how high.
That is interesting. And it's worked until now.
It's absolutely worked. I posted on Facebook a few months ago a question from my fellow Israelis. To what extent will you accept these draconian restrictions? And more than a few people said, the government is doing this for our benefit. It's difficult, but we need to follow what they say.
So I'm curious. I'm going to ask my producer for a second. Would you say most Americans have the same attitude? Or it's a different mindset here that is allowed for it? All right, we'll talk about that another time. So has Israel been, unlike even Austria, protest-free?
I don't recall seeing any major protests in the streets, not even on social media, a virtual protest. The biggest protest that I've seen was the protest that I did myself a few weeks ago in a supermarket where I just refused to wear a mask the entire time.
In an Israeli supermarket?
Yes, in an Israeli supermarket.
And what happened?
And the guard, when I went in, of course this conversation is going on in Hebrew, he said, sir, you need a mask. And I turned to him and I said, I'm sorry, I am done with masks. The look on his face indicated he had never received a response like that.
I understand.
He was in shock. He was in absolute shock.
Yes.
He repeated it, and I repeated to him, I'm sorry, I'm done with masks. And then the manager, when I was checking out, told me, you can't do this, as I'm swiping my groceries. And I'm thinking the whole time, well, actually I can, because I'm doing it right now. And the feeling of liberation, it was sort of a mini exodus for me. The feeling of liberation.
By the way, I have another answer for you. Why aren't you wearing a mask? It's not Purim. I think it's another possibility.
Very good, yes.
Aryeh Leifert's company, Inside Israel Insider Tours. IsraelInsiderTours.com. He's magnificent. It's up at DennisPrager.com. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. I would never have predicted that Americans or Israelis would be so docile as they watch the economies of their countries shattered, people losing their businesses, kids not going to school for no good reason. NGR, no good reason. So it's interesting to discuss this. An American who made Aliyah, which means moved to Israel. How long ago did you do that?
12 years ago.
12 years
Very
ago.
easy date. 090909.
Is that right?
Yep.
999?
Very convenient.
It certainly is. And of course, he's fluent in Hebrew. He runs a magnificent tour company, Israel Insider Tours, and it's up at Dennis Prager. And we're very happy to mention that to you because he's a quality man and a quality company. But tourism in Israel, how big is tourism to Israel's economy?
Tremendous. I don't know the exact percentage, but so many people rely on tourism, whether bus drivers, whether shopkeepers. So much of the economy depends on foreigners.
And it's the little guy.
Correct.
I mean, big tech companies in Israel are doing fine, just like big tech in America is doing fine. But I mean, I'm just thinking, so everybody employed in the hotel industry.
Correct.
Everybody, buses, drivers.
Yep.
Tour guides.
Gift shops.
Yep.
And the small mom and pop stores.
And the restaurants.
Or
I mean,
services, the people.
Why do all the waiters know English?
Right.
Because there's so many tourists there.
Right. I was speaking to some of our drivers recently. They're thinking of going into other industries. They can't wait forever. They literally live group to group.
This Omicron has to be the final straw. New York State, this crackpot governor of New York State, has declared a state of emergency over a virus that has not even reached the United States and which they say in South Africa is mild. And Israel has done the same thing. Israel's going to another lockdown, correct?
We are closed as of 2 days ago to foreigners for at least 2 weeks. They say 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
I hope
they said 2 weeks in the beginning.
Right. Two weeks to flatten the curve. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Right.
By the way, it's worth noting, this is not the Netanyahu government.
Right.
It's not Netanyahu. It's not Bennett. It's Israel.
Right. Very frustrating.
So what are your colleagues doing who are in your business?
So some of them are actively looking for jobs outside the tourism industry, unfortunately. Excellent guides who just want to showcase our incredible country and act as the real ambassadors of Israel. I mean, God bless our actual ambassadors in foreign capitals, but practically speaking, we are the daily ambassadors of our country to the world. So unfortunately, they're leaving the industry. They can't wait forever. They need to support their family. And the Israel Electric Company and the Water Authority
don't care.
Right.
So, which raises the question, is there, at least I will say this, in America, there's an awareness of how many people's livelihoods have been shattered. Is it even an issue in Israel, or is the entire issue safety?
I basically only see references to that on the Facebook page of the Israeli Minister of Tourism. I'm not sure of what he really is a minister, but when he posts various things on Facebook, people are posting, "We need help, enough talk, Mr. Minister, give us some action." But in general, I don't see this in the Israeli press of how much of an impact these lockdowns are having.
Or are you being aided financially by the government?
We were being aided, small businesses were being aided through the end of the Netanyahu government, and then with the start of the Bennett government, the Minister of Finance announced no more financial grants to small businesses. And by the way, we're keeping the skies closed so you can't support yourselves. Have a great day.
So I don't know if I told you this, but I know I didn't say it on the radio. I did a podcast with Benjamin Netanyahu's son, who has his own, Yair is his name. Yair Netanyahu has his own podcast. He's on the right in Israel, and he asked if he could have me on as a guest, which we did about 10 days ago. And I mentioned the lockdowns in passing. And he said to me, he looked at me, we were on, I don't know, Skype or Zoom, and he said, this is the one area where we conservatives in Israel differ with you conservatives in America. And I found that very revealing. Even conservatives in Israel go along with the lockdowns.
Yes, I would agree with that. There is very little of a divide between liberals and conservatives in Israel on this.
Yeah.
Very sad to say.
Indeed it is. So now you're going back. When are you flying back?
So I will get back Friday afternoon. My children, Yona, Ahuva, Ma'ayan, Aderet, and Reuven.
5.
5, thank God. Abba will be home for Shabbat.
They're listening? Cool.
They are listening in Israel right now.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yes, they are.
Hey, guys. Look forward to meeting you. So, are they going to let you in? Do you have to quarantine? What's the story?
So, according to the latest rules, which may have changed in the past 20 minutes, I have no idea.
That's right. That's
very
true.
Possible.
Yep.
I will have to get a PCR test upon landing, find that standard, but then I will need to quarantine for up to 3 days until I can get a second test, and I've already posted on Facebook that I'm not going to do it. I am not going to quarantine. I am going to go out hiking with my children. I am not going to be a prisoner.
Let me tell the Leifert children, you're lucky to have a father who doesn't walk around in fear. Really, really lucky. Aryeh Leifert, Israel Insider Tours. It's up at DennisPrager.com. Thank you, my friend. It's a joy to have you on.
Thank you very much. Happy Hanukkah, Dennis.
The Dennis Prager Show.